Okay, in 1996, while Julie was away. So this is, I guess, part two on the Herb story. This is the wife of serial killer, Herb Baumeister. Hopefully, I'm saying that right. I butcher everybody's name. Okay, Julie was troubled that day in fall of 1994 when Eric, her 13-year-old, brought home a human skull, right? He found in the woods of the Fox Hollow farm, the family's $1 million estate in the Indianapolis suburb of Westfield. Julie was even more unsettled when Eric led her to the site of the ghoulish discovery. There among the fallen leaves lay a cluster of bones. I would almost think, like, if this happened to me, my first thought to it would be maybe somebody came into the property and killed somebody, right? I would probably think that first, and or it was there before we moved in. But they were there for a little bit. I don't remember how long, but so I don't know. That would have been my first thought, and then after this, I would have just called authorities, right? I mean, I'm just thinking of it realistically. Like, my son brings me a skull, it would freak me the hell out, shows me the area, and then it would freak me out so much I would call authority. I mean, you just would, right? And I probably wouldn't be thinking he did it right away. So then it would have turned into that. But let's see what happens here. That night, Julie's husband of 23 years, dispelled her anxiety. The bones, he said, were See, so this doesn't make sense to me because it happened and then they saw it and then they didn't call authorities. See, I don't know. That's a little weird to me because that's frightening for anyone. I mean, just anyone. I don't care if you've seen dead bodies a million times. It's like, who the hell finds a dead body in the yard, you know? So it says that night, Jolie's husband of 23 years, dispelled her anxiety. The bones, he said, were from a medical school skeleton once owned. See, now there's a missing part of the story. Because where is he in this? Like, it just says the son, and then she goes out there, and then she did nothing? That doesn't, something's not right there. Where is he? And then this is says that night. Now it's that night, right? So in between this, they find a body and then nobody reports it. Like, you just automatically would because you wouldn't, I just would not think he did it. It just wouldn't have been a thought. It would just be like, I think that, so either it is like this, that she suspected him and didn't want to get him in trouble. I don't know, you guys, because the actions here don't, even for 94, hell no. Like, your automatic instinct is like, holy crap, call the police. You know what I mean? It's just that. I mean, you just would. So why would you then turn into at night unless he was there with them? But it doesn't say he was with them in that portion right there, right? So why would you just leave the body there and go, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I do have a question. I was listening to the podcast and they were questioning this too. And I was just like, well, I know to a point in 94, the majority of the population was these psychotic Christians. So they had this like magical thinking about everything and that nobody's really born bad. This weird thing, dude. And no matter what I said to these people, they wouldn't believe reality, right? It's like, this guy totally did this. It's like, oh, are you sure you didn't, gaslight, gaslight, gaslight. Oh, and even if they did, we gotta forgive them. This is their mindset. But I can't imagine even that, like, one of them finding a dead body in their yard, wouldn't call the cops, right? Okay? Because they weren't that out of it. I mean, most of them anyway, but, Okay. Julie's husband at 23 years dispelled her anxiety. The bones, he said, were from a medical school skeleton once owned by his late father, an anesthesiologist. So what they were doing in the backyard, Herb didn't say. But days later, Julie noticed they had vanished. Carried off by an animal, she assumed. She quickly forgot the episode. Okay, why would they take off with the bones? Okay, so animals, what they like to do, well, typically, like, okay, so if there's like a fresh body out there, then they would have already taken them, right? They would have tore it apart and, all that stuff. So just bones being there, and they were there the whole time. They could be scattered, but that wouldn't happen like that, just randomly, right? Because they were there for a while, right? I don't know how long they were there. They were probably there, maybe it could be over a year, for all we know, because there was no body left, right? It was just skeletal. So that happens depending on the environment of stuff and conditions. So it was probably there for quite a while. So why would it take the entire body that you just saw? She quickly forgot the episode. How the hell do you forget that there was a body in the yard? It wasn't like I was sitting at home with nothing else to think about, she says. This is just weird. Something strange. Maybe this is the thing with this woman. Maybe there is something wrong with her as well as to why she's matched up with this serial killer guy who's totally off kilter, right? Like, you just don't know her character because, when we view this stuff, we're looking at ourselves and going, I cannot place myself here. So maybe there's something wrong with her as well. I don't know. Or she does have had knowledge and was trying to just not get him busted. That could be another thing in this. I'm not really clear because I'm just trying to figure out in this portion why they would find it believable that the father had a skeleton thing, and why would it be in the yard, right? And they just believed it. So it's either she's not all there, or it's something that he actually did for his school. I mean, I don't know anything about becoming an anesthesiologist, so I don't know what they have done in their, I can't answer that. But his dad sounds ultra creepy anyway. In fact, there was much Julie, now 48, didn't know about her. Every summer, Julie usually left town for part of each month, taking Eric, now 15, and daughters Marnie, 17, and Emily, 12, to stay at a lakeside condo 100 miles to the north, owned by Herb's mother. Elizabeth, Herb stayed home during the work week. By day, he would mind the couple's business, a chain of local thrift stores called Save-A-Lot. By night, Julie later learned he would cruise the gay bars of Indianapolis. And who set that up? Probably him. What? Herb's other secrets, police believe, were chilling and deadly. Last June, while he was visiting the condo, officers found hundreds of bones at Fox Hollow Farm, adding up to the remains of 7 people. 4 have been identified: Roger Allen Goodlett, 33, Stephen Hale, 26, Richard Hamilton, 20, all of Indianapolis, and Manuel Resendez, 31, of Lafayette, Indianapolis, and all frequented the same bar that Baumeister did, and all went on days when his wife and kids were away. Okay, so this is when he was doing the killings, when she went away. For now, says Sergeant Ken of Hamilton County, Baumeister is merely a prime suspect in the disappearance of the 4 identified men, who won't be ruled homicide victims until forensic specialists determine a cause of death. But officials believe that when the bodies are vetted, 6 Indianapolis men who fit the profiles of the victims are missing. Herb Baumeister may emerge as the most prolific serial killer in Indiana history. If so, he is beyond earthly justice. The day after police began searching his property, the 49-year-old Baumeister disappeared. And he'd been missing for 8 days when campers discovered his body last July 3rd, lying beside his car in Ontario's Pinery Provincial Park. shot through the forehead with a 357 Magnum, and he left behind a rambling 3-page suicide note apologizing for his family financial woes. The business was nearly bankrupt, but not mentioning the hideous crimes he is now thought to have committed. His widow was stunned. True, she and Herb had grown apart and were contemplating divorce, but Julie had blamed the tension on their precarious finances. The police came to me and said, "We are investigating your husband in relation to homosexual homicide." And she recalls her first contact with detectives. I remember saying to them, "Can you tell me what homosexual homicide is?" Oh my God. Um, maybe she is really, I don't know, you guys. What is homosexual homicide? It's like, oh my God. For Julie, the shock was all the more jarring because of the close-knit, even clustered, I don't know, family life she and Herb had tried to build at the Hollow Farm. The Baumeisters, who had few friends, showed their, yeah, see, that's another thing. They don't have really any friends. Nothing, I mean, there's some people that are like this, but I don't know. Usually one of the partners has a bunch of friends. Showered their attention on their children. Herb, Julie recalls, was a dedicated parent, involved in all aspects of their children upbringing, whether it was choosing their preschool, buying their Christmas toys, and making their peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. He's going through the motions. Perhaps he was trying to recreate what had seemed to be his own happy childhood. That guy did not. If he's trying to relive anything, he's trying to relive what he didn't have. They keep saying happy childhood. That dude, something, nuh-uh. Julie says Herb grew up in a beaver cleaver kind of, kind of home in Indianapolis, the eldest child of Herbert and Elizabeth Baumeister. He entered Indiana University in 1965. Okay, we know the beaver cleavers probably beat and molested their kids really in real life. It's just TV type of thing. So there's actually no family that's like that. I'm just saying. There's obviously something amiss here. He entered Indiana University in 1965, but left after one semester. Yeah, he can't do anything. So for a time, he worked as a copy boy so it was only one semester. I thought he was in there for 2 years because they put it in this one section, but I guess, okay, so he's a copy boy. And then Donna, then an ad representative at the paper, recalls him as eager to please, but eccentric. Yeah, we don't trust these eccentric guys because every time I keep meeting these eccentric people, they're completely psychotic and off kilter. I used to think like they were really interesting people, like when I was younger, but then they all abused me and they did something horrible to me. And I was like, yeah, that's a sign of major problems, okay? For one thing, he and a friend co-owned a second-hand hearse. What? Wait. Am I gonna hit on the thing of like the mortuary dude? For one thing, he and his friend co-owned a second-hand hearse. Oh my God, I said he looks like a mortuary guy. They had a hearse. Okay, wait, I remember a friend saying, "What's the deal with this guy?" I just said, "Well, Herb's just Herb." It's like, dude, okay, there's some kind of weird thing with this because who had a hearse? Somebody had a hearse. Who the hell had a hearse? There was some people that did get a hearse. They thought it was like cool and creepy to have. And no, I would not expect them to, so maybe it's that type of thing. Like they're looking at it like in that perspective. Because back then, yeah, I would say probably in the 80s and 90s, people were trying to be hella creepy and stuff. And then he got like a hearse. But he looks like a guy from a mortuary, right? That would just make him even more ultra creepy to me. And I probably would suspect something with him just because he's also eccentric and way weird with the hearse and his mannerisms, like that whole thing. I would go, I think he probably really kills people. Herb returned to IU in the fall of in 67 and met Julie, also a student there. He was nice he was nice. He was fun to be with. We went cruising around in the hearse. Okay, no, he's a Republican. This is the weirdest thing. Fun to be with and good looking. Um, Subjective. Okay, so we both like cars, and we were both young Republicans. This is actually at the point where I was like, I had called myself a Republican, and then I realized I was more of like a Dem at the time, but then like I didn't vote for Clinton. Like there was this thing. And then I was trying to I wanted to vote for that dude Perot, dude. I was like, that's who I wanted to vote for at the time. But then I swung on over to the Dems, and then, during all this other stuff, I realized I don't agree with any of them. Like, I don't agree with any of them. Once you actually like give a shit and really hone in on the things that matter to you, and I realize, oh, they're all a bunch of rapists and they hate women. They really don't want equality, neither side. So, yeah, they don't want to make us, priority on anything. So they'll leave us out of the conversation. Then we lose all our rights, right? Both of them. Okay, so they married in 71 and soon bought a house in Indianapolis. Herb began clerking at the motor vehicles where he would work his way up to supervisor. Julie taught high school English. We did everything together. He would push the mower and I would trim the bushes. Oh, I could see why he did the mower. Yeah, really. But in the early 70s, Herb became so depressed that his physician father had him committed for over a month to a psychiatric hospital. Just because he was depressed? Or what happened? Like, it doesn't, see, okay, that weird depression thing is like in tie, I guess, with the sociopath thing. Because if you see in the 99 shooting, right, that was the same thing. They're like, oh, he's just depressed. This thing, you're seeing it right here. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. I don't know if he tried to, maybe, well, you would need to know, like, what was the thing that he was doing? Was he just sitting there, like, cutting himself? Did he, like, say things like he was gonna was he suicidal? Maybe he was suicidal, because at the end he's suicidal, right? Maybe it was something like that. Maybe he stopped doing things. I'm not sure, but it's kind of weird. So the father was the abuser. So the father comes in and he commits him for over a month to a psychiatric hospital. Julie did not dispute the decision. He was hurting and needed help. She says now, in fact, ex-colleagues at the motor vehicle agency says he was a perfectionist given to sudden unprovoked rages. Well, that's not depression. That dude's a sociopath. Like he's straight up. So those are like the signs of it versus like, some other stuff. But no, that's the sign. They did not get these guys at all at the time. Oh, he's just a little depressed, He's snapping away, people and peeing on the desk. Okay, so after Herb left his job in 85, he worked at a local thrift store. The experience inspired him to pursue what Julie calls their joint vision. In 89, after borrowing $350,000 in seed money from Herb's mother, well, they said $4,000. Wait, I'm totally confused. After borrowing $350K in seed money from Herb's mother, they opened their first of 3 Save-A-Lots. It said 4,000. Is this wrong? Okay, it has to be, because it's all where they sold used clothing, giving some $50K of their profits annually to a charity benefiting neglected children. That's weird. Maybe he was neglected. I don't know. That's an interesting thing. So he gave money to a charity for neglected children. Okay, attorney John, who represented their businesses, say both partners were intelligent, oh goodness, and socially conscious. Though Herb was domineering, Julie deferred to Herb. but wasn't very happy about it. Oddly, Save-A-Lot employees know Baumeister would often disappear during the workday, sometimes for hours at a time. Well, wouldn't that say that then he probably went out and did some crimes because it said like then he came back with alcohol on his breath. So doesn't it say like he went to a bar and then maybe he went and committed another crime somewhere? Maybe it was at the house, maybe it was somewhere else, I don't know. And then he comes back to work, right? Okay, after initial success, the Baumeister's business began to fail, as did their marriage. As Julie tells it, long hours they put in the stores, the pressure of parenting, and later the financial strain led to a kind of burnout. Herb moved out in February of 91 and filed for divorce. The couple soon reconciled, though, and that November, in spite of their business problems, bought Fox Hollow Farm. Ooh, that's weird right there. So they split. Where'd he go? And there was dead bodies. I'd have to reference like when those were, and then this thing, and then that. Okay. They purchased with in spite of their business problems, right? They bought that farm. Purchased with a small down payment, the estate boasted a 4-bedroom house and an indoor pool. Julie says they saw it as a utopia where the children could rollerblade without having to worry about cars coming around the corner, and thought she didn't know it, but Herb was so involved, perhaps uneasy in the gay nightlife scene. Some people, when they come into a gay bar, act like they're afraid of being here, says Jim Brown, owner of the upscale Metropolitan restaurant and nightclub who caters to gay professionals. He didn't seem like he was comfortable. It was in May 93 that gay men began disappearing in the area. 10 would vanish in a little over 2 years. Police scour gay Indianapolis, interviewing bar goers and posting flyers, but leads were scarce. Then in the fall of 94, a man told them of a strange tryst that he had that summer with someone named Brian. I swear to God, if they ever do like all these like, movie things, you have to name the guy Brian. Like, I don't know what the fuck that's about. But he came up with it too. He's like, what's the perfect name for my serial killer name? Brian. There you go. I met our, perpetrator Brian actually just right before this. So it's just, on point. They had gone to Brian's sprawling estate and at Brian's behest, had engaged in autoerotic asphyxia, a sexual practice involving suffocation. I would have to research more into that. I've only met like maybe not too many people that are into that. He has an earlier thing about strangulation, so I'm thinking that it might be a thing where something around that first happened, and then maybe he started getting into that later because it's part of his thing or what. It's just an interesting addition in this of like, what the hell? Because he's into the animal thing and that and all that. And then this came into it. And it says, often to the brink of death. Yeah, so he likes playing with death. I mean, it's kind of that thing. I've actually never looked into the psychology of it because it's not very often you run into somebody into that. It's pretty dangerous, and there's been a couple of cases with the accidental deaths of it, but his has like additions, right? He's a serial killer, but he's using that as a form of then killing the person, right? The informant like he's so into it that he wants to, like he's taking power and control, and he's like taking your life, right? So he instead of it being, it's supposed to be like on the brink of death. No, he wants to see death and he wants to cause it. And you know what I mean? It's that mentality. It's pretty dark, man, this guy. But the informant remained shaken by the encounter. In the fall of 95, he had spotted Brian again and, aware of the rash of disappearances, had taken down his license plate number, and it turned out to be the missing link. Brian was Herb Baumeister. So I don't think they probably won't get into his story, but like, I guess what happened was this guy like took his friend, and then his friend went missing. And then he went with that guy to the house. And then when they went into the pool area, there was all these mannequins. It was weird. Like So I was like, the wife was totally cool with this or what? Yeah, so he had all these mannequins, I guess, around the pool area. I don't know if there's even photos of this or what the hell. But then, so then he would take the guy in there, and then he took like a pool hose or something, and he told the guy first, he's like, you strangle me first, and then he did this thing, right? And then he's like, okay, now it's my turn. So then he goes and he does it to this guy that went, and then he did it so hard, the guy just pretended he was dead, and then he came to it, and then for some reason, Herb wasn't even, he didn't do anything. He's like, okay, because he was kind of assuming he was probably dead. But this guy was like, oh my God, the guy like literally tried to kill me, basically. And then Herb drove him home or something. It's strange. Like, he didn't try to kill him. Like, he wasn't tied up, I guess. I mean, so in that particular case right there, that happened. But maybe it's also that I don't want to say he didn't want to kill him. I don't know. It's a little strange. But anyway, he gets away, and then he tells the cops, right? And then they're like, well, let us know when you find him. It's like, the story's weird. I was like, the guy literally tried to murder him, and the cops are like, well, let us know if you run into him again, like that. So anyway, he finds him again, gets the license plate, and then they find that. And it says, in November, detectives show up at the Fox Hollow farm asking to search the estate. And then when Herb refused, police lacked sufficient evidence for a warrant, went to work on Julie. Approaching her to Save-A-Lot, they told her about Herb's cruising and said that he was a suspect in disappearances. I was angry, Julie said. I said, you're wrong. That can't be true. Oh, she did this. When she confronted Herb with the charges, he dismissed them, and Julie pressed no further. I mean, the denial here is amazing, but it's just like they never really had sex or anything like that. They don't spend time together. And then the cops go, your dude's been cruising around, dude, looking for the dudes, man. And then she's like, that's ridiculous. And you found a body in your yard. So she knew it. It's like she's like, either she knows about it, she's trying to protect him, because okay, you found a body, now they're telling you this, and then at no point right here you're like, oh crap, you go, okay, he's not gonna be here at this time, go over there then. With nothing to go on but one man's brief and bizarre encounter, police made little headway for 5 months. When they approached Julie a second time, she rebuffed them again. It's her, dude. Still, her apparent loyalty to Herb belied their escalating marital problems. By June, it's kind of like, yeah, duh, you guys, the couple were no longer speaking. He was never sexually attracted to her, so that's the other thing to it. It's like, moreover, Julie, now haunted by the skull Eric had found, had become increasingly suspicious. What if the police are right and I'm wrong? She recalls thinking. On June 24th, when Herb was away, she finally allowed the police to inspect the property. Remember, yeah, why didn't you call the cops the first time you found the bone, man? Because that shit, that's the question in this, right? So I don't know if she's making up something because she was trying to protect them or what here, because how do you just didn't just call them right away, It just doesn't, I'm going to question it because that doesn't, the actions here are a little off kilter. What if the police are right and I'm wrong? And Herb was away, and she finally allowed police to inspect the property. Remember the 2-week search that followed? She said she clung to her children as if huddling all my puppies together. And Herb's 8-day disappearance before his suicide added to the agony. I kept saying, where is he? But no one knew, And then the months since Herb's death have been particularly wrenching for the kids. Because they idolize the father, now portrayed by police and local media as a monster. Yeah, but he brought his son, dude, and the Eric is the one that had to be there when that stupid animal thing happened, and then he finds a skull. So, I mean, out of all the kids, like, what the hell? Still, she insisted, nothing can take away the love these kids had for their dad. Okay, late last summer, she and the children moved from Fox Hollow Farm back to the house in Indianapolis, where she began her life with Herb nearly 25 years ago. Our biggest question now is, how could he have loved us and done this? He didn't love anybody. He's not capable of it. Herb alleged atrocities. Happiness as we knew it is never going to return. That was fate. You got had by a sociopath. He lied to her. Like everything is a lie, right? It's like the whole time he's playing this charade and they're just playing house, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming the beard thing is just maybe because it helps cover his tracks, right? Like no one's gonna think I'm this gay guy, this thing. But I don't know how so much that he wants to fit in because he doesn't really try to fit in, as you see. He kind of he doesn't really care in so much of a way, but she is a beard, like it's that thing. And then maybe it's like he's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have kids? I mean, I don't know what the kid thing is about. It's a little strange in top of this, but I guess it's just a good front where he. I don't know. I can't answer the kid portion. It's kind of interesting because everybody's like a pawn, so it's not like he really loves anything. He's not capable. He's just not capable of it. And then his son finds a head, so he's just like, yeah. Yeah, it's like, dude, no. No, I can't get over the fact that she found the body and she didn't even call the cops, dude. Why? Can somebody answer this? They didn't even answer why. They found a body and then they didn't do nothing. I mean, honey, do you know whose body's in the yard? You know what I mean? Like, nobody's gonna act like that. Oh, and the other thing was that, okay, so then I guess he taped it or he did something. And you almost had to sit there and think, like, God, if you're living in the same house, like, you didn't run across any of this stuff. I mean, it is possible because it was a big house that he hid stuff. But I know how I am because I was that way when I was little. I go stalking around the house, man. And if I find, I was like, if I find some shit, I'm going to go put that damn videotape it. I'm just saying it's like, there had to be, so like the mannequin thing, dude. Where's the hearse? Did they keep the hearse still? He and his friend co-owned a second-hand hearse. Oh my God, that was the craziest thing because I was looking at that photo and I was like, it's the guy works in a mortuary. Oh, I read these guys pretty good, right? When I'm like paying attention, like when I'm really paying attention to them, going through stuff. There's a lot of people I haven't really sat back and really went through, and I don't want to. I these people, they're everywhere. I literally was online today earlier on this story. What is the story? The story's about, oh, the father that shot the judge because he couldn't keep the kids or something. They got in a divorce thing. And there's literally all the sociopaths like crawled up into that story. I'll be damned. That's one that they're like, these judges, that's karma. I go, no, the judge made the correct decision. He's a murderer. What the fuck? I was like, the dude killed people. So yeah, I was trying to explain over there in the comments. I go, yes, they're attracted to these stories and you should be able to find them quite easily in the comments section. All the socios, yeah. They're like, oh, karma. Like they're praising that the guy is a lunatic and he's violent and he's a murderer. And so the way that the socio justifies it is, this is what they get. The judge made him do it. So do you see how they take the accountability away from the man? He's violent. So the original story is that he was going to be violent to the daughter, right? And the wife wanted to get away from him, but she was scared and couldn't get away out of the situation. And then, yeah, and then he got psychotic and he did that. And that's why she's scared, right? Because she knows he's capable of doing that. Technically. So they come in there and you got to sit with their justification. It is psychotic. It's like these judges have these evil women to give the kids to the mom. It's like, yeah, because the fathers are typically abusive, right? As we see in these stories, right? The fathers are pretty much messed up. You don't want your kids with the father. My dad should not have had no thing with me alone. No. Look what he did, right? He's an abuser. And that should have never happened. And so I've been trying to dig into that, going, who had the actual custody of me? I don't know if they had joint custody. That wasn't supposed to be that way. Like, I was supposed to be taken care of by my mom. And then I got taken away from her. And then I got left completely with him. And they were both abusers, right? So then he's the one that set up the thing to dump me out here. So no, the fathers are not good. And the fathers have been getting their sons raped as well. So no, typically, but not always, because there's some really bad moms. So we're not even going there saying like mom is the only good person here. But typically, like the mom is the better option with a lot of these abusive fathers. But such as in the, what was it, the religious case that recently happened? No, the mom's bad, but how come the dad didn't get in trouble either? Because they were both participating in this type of abuse thing. I'm still annoyed by that, where they didn't get him either, because they're both together in that. Because in any other case, if it's the father being the abuser, they technically will take the mom too, saying like you aided in it, right? They do that. There's only a few cases where I'd say no, that shouldn't happen. Is like ones where like the mom wasn't. Sometimes they're like the mom's not even present, and then or it's that he's being so abusive to her that she can't stop what's happening. Though it's kind of a. Some of those are really hard. Those cases. But yeah, no, more times than not, it's actually better that the kids are with the mom. But again, there's cases with evil grandma, our evil grandma, right? You wouldn't want kids with that woman. No, they, so I'm aware of that. It's just when they go into court, they could tell that he's the one that's already the problem because he's being violent, right? So, yeah, he made the right decision. It's unfortunate, but he went and murdered somebody, the judge, for doing that. See, he made the right decision, I'm saying, but he was a danger. And so, yeah. But again, if you want to study the socios, that story right there, go to New York Post and go look in the comments and sit with what they're saying. Somebody else went in the comments this time, which was funny. They're like, oh, we have a domestic violence sympathizer, something, something. And yeah, I go under and I go, it's more that they're sociopath. The people that are posting it, the guy that's posting it, I was like, it's a sociopath that can't take accountability for his actions. So they blame the victim for them and try to justify the violent behavior on another. It's more that way, right? Like the more correct thing of why they're going on like that. And that, he deserves it because it's so crazy, dude. The socio brain is like, he deserves it because they always, at 90% of the time with these women, they start getting in this like, anger, like this self-loathing anger, and it's not him, right? Why is it a story about you, fool? Like, did you get your kids taken away? If you did, it was the right decision, okay? So that's why I'm looking at it, and you can go in there and just study this thing, and it's like, there's so many. You guys, there's so many of them, and none of these guys, I'm certain, were diagnosed with it. I am, and it should frighten you. And they love stories because they want to go there to degrade women. Their enjoyment is that, and then they feel good doing it, and then they're promoting that the guy went and murdered the judge. Yeah, they're like, he deserves it. Yeah, dude, I go, you should be investigated. And if you have kids, they should be taken away. That's what I said to one of them. But, yeah, that they're there, dude. If you ever want to find them, you had any question that there's a tank of them, look at those type of cases. Particularly ones where it is, I've already figured this out. I was like, I already figured this out. So I always go in there and I try to like, point them out. I'm like, so, I do this thing just so when people go through it, like they don't just go narcissist, because no. So then the guy, okay, so stories where they're harming women, right? So now stories where like they take the kids away from the father, you go find them there. Stories where boys, the interesting one, okay, boys getting raped, you can find them there. But they tend to talk. I seen females, you guys, in that one. I'm like, wow, I find some female socios now. I am. I'm finding them. And they're saying, like, I assumed it was a guy. And it's kind of hard to tell sometimes because they'll sometimes put female names and it technically might be a guy. But no, I believe there's some women in there. So the women will come and say, yeah, this is not a big deal. And yeah, doing that thing. And I was like, wow, we got some of those. So I'm looking, I'm just seeing like how they're responding, and it's frightening because if you imagine on the story, let's say that someone touched their son, right? This is how mom, that scary mom right there, is going to react to somebody touching her son. And I have been reading some stories where it's like the parents were not acting properly when an adult female touched their son. Like they got mad at the son, and then they tried to change the story and go, oh, and then I reported it. This thing like that. They're not acting proper. No, but they are showing up on the ones where guys are getting touched. Yeah, they're showing up there. They're not as, I don't feel like they're as vindictive as they are to the female ones, but they can be. It's just, it's more like these guys just want to get some money right now, and everybody wants to jump on the gravy train. It'll say something like that. Yeah, and the typical one is, I wish I was raped when I was a kid by so and so. That one. That's the promotion of it. And then, of course, if that's your dad, then he's going to let you get raped, and you should get patted on the back, son. That one's terrible. Then, what else? Yeah, pretty much those type of stories where women are getting harmed. They're there. They're always there. Okay, so kid cases when they lose custody to the mom. Then some divorce ones, I'm sure. Those are terrible. Then yeah, guy is getting touched. So, yeah, if you want to study it, like I said, go into the comments and just sit there and try to find them. They'll always be there. I'm just saying they'll always be there. And then it's typically, this is weird. On one site, there was the same story, right? So this one I had to think about because I still don't know the answer to it. But on one site, it's almost like maybe if it starts off with the tank of socios, then the whole comment section is just all negative and terrible, right? And then I went to another site with the same exact story, right? And I'm thinking it's going to be the same type of thing. No, all of a sudden, like the whole reaction was the complete opposite on another website. And they weren't like, really right wing, left wing, anything. They're just media sites for, I don't know, maybe celeb stuff or, something like that, right? But one site, it was like once it went negative, it was like the entire like thing where they all came out and they're like, oh, trashing the victim, trashing the victim. But then I went to another site and it was like all like, supporting the victim, supporting the victim, supporting the victim. I'm like, I can't make sense of that right now. I can make sense of it if it was like, okay, the same story's on like Fox News and then the same story went on like CNN or something, right? And then the comment section would probably be sounding differently, but it wasn't that. They're just regular sites like that. And I forgot what story it was. It happened the other day. It was just like literally the other day, and I was like, that's freaking weird. So I don't know the answer to that one. It just, maybe that's the demographic of the other site. I would have to really look at that. I don't know why I did that. It was just strange. It's just strange. I'm like, well, then, it's kind of hard to go by then if it's going to go that way. I don't know why it would attract more on that one site. But yeah, study the comment section and you'll find them. They're definitely there. They're always there. So apparently, okay, so on Reddit, it says the pool at the mansion that was used to own by the killer. Okay. It looked like this. Man, my dream back then was to have an indoor pool. This would have been my ultimate dream. Except for I would not have it built like this because it has no sunroof thing. It's too enclosed where it's like kind of scary. You see, like it's not very that's how do you walk around? You know what I mean? But yeah, this is the indoor pool thing where apparently he did a lot of the killings or something. I don't see the mannequins. Where's the mannequins, you guys? He said, yes, that's him. And I read somewhere that he had a bunch of mannequins set up by the pool and he would strangle his victims while the mannequins watched it. I would go over and swim in this pool when I was a kid. My friend's family bought the Baumeister house after he died. At the time, I was elementary school age, so I didn't know anything about what happened in the house. I was 1 years old in '94 when we moved to the house in Westerfield, just up the road from the mansion. My sisters, who were 5 and 12, I remember having to stay home from school while the bones in the yard were being dug up. It's so weird to have obliviously visited the home of a serial killer so many times. I was always just amazed how incredible the home was and didn't have a clue about the history behind it. My dad still lives in my childhood home, and I always drive by the farm, but now with a different point of view and than when I did as a kid. Mm, that's interesting. I would be afraid, like, one day you're just gonna be out there and then you're gonna find more stuff. Like, I would be so out there looking still. I don't know, but, uh, yeah, where's this thing about the mannequin? They said it, and they're just like, why wouldn't there be pictures of it? Because they came in. So I'm trying to figure out. Let's see. So it's this bottom thing they're talking about, maybe? That was the original. Um, well, there's a male mannequin. This looks like I mean, it's almost like it could be a woman, it could be a man. I don't know. It's weird. That one's weird. This, he has the seashell thing. Um, that's the only thing. That looks like the house though, on the side. Yeah, but how come it's red there? On the other pictures, it's blue. On this, it's red, so maybe the original thing was red. That's ugly.